Hey, everybody, how's it going?
That's correct.
Oh, turn that up.
Hey, come on, man.
All righty, so let's just make sure all of you are with us here and that you can hear us. Oh, we're going to do the song of the day. Don't worry, everybody. I know it's everybody's
I was really worried about that.
I'm sure some people are like, all right, got my song of the day, and then they tune out and don't hear any of the show. But
those computers that are on there.
All right.
I'm like a high-tech machine in here all
That's
of a
pretty
sudden.
cool. Yeah, we got those computers on.
I have never seen those working before.
Makes us look important.
We're very important.
Oh, and by the way, listeners, we're going to be doing the show on Halloween, 2 days away. What should Ben Joravsky be for Halloween for the show? What should Ben be for Halloween, everybody?
Man.
Give us some good Halloween ideas, you know?
I mean, I got to, like, dress differently?
Maybe. We'll see. We'll see. Ben, you got any ideas? Any good Halloween ideas?
Yeah, I'll just go as Robert De Niro.
Oh.
People say I look like Robert De Niro.
Okay.
Nobody's...
Oh, I was going to say, I kind of see it a little bit.
Some people say, Bruce Springsteen. I'll go as Bruce Springsteen.
Ah, Bruce Springsteen. Okay.
Yeah.
All
Born in the USA.
right. Shout out to Steven. He said, I actually like Ben singing, by the way. Yeah, you only hear it for like an hour, guys.
I love him.
You barely hear it. I hear
Send
it every
him
day.
some steak knives.
So is that your song, the Bruce Springsteen song?
Yeah, I could try the Rolling. I heard the Rolling Stones when I was coming in today. You know that song, Angie? You know Angie?
No, sing it. I
want to hear you sing it.
I don't know. If you sang it, I think I'd know it.
Hold on, I have to just conjure up my Mick Jagger, my inner Mick Jagger. By the way, I'm really loving Mick Jagger more and more as the years go on. Can I just throw that out there?
Okay.
Anyway, Mick Jagger. Angie. Angie. You cry. I forget what the line is, but it's something about crying. Whoa. And then he just goes like that. I like Mick Jagger. You like Mick Jagger?
Yeah, sure.
Okay,
Sure, he's okay.
Then they did a Heartbreaker. You like that song, Heartbreaker?
What?
Heartbreaker with your 44.
Yeah.
That's Mick
Isn't this
Jagger.
fun, guys? Isn't this fun?
Oh, and by the way, at the bowling alley last night, they were playing the Manhattans. Let's just kiss and say goodbye. All right, enough singing
all
for that. I love that. Manhattans. You like the Manhattans, D?
No, never heard of the Manhattans.
No, man. I gotta get. Yeah, it is a '60s thing.
Your Ben Joravsky show for Tuesday, October 29th is just moments away. But before we get into that, we need to thank the following unions for sponsoring this program. First up, the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers, Local 126 and District 8. The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 9. The International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 150. And of course, today's Ben Joravsky show is brought to you by the Chicago Federation of Labor. Ben, hit him with that song one more time.
Angie. Or which one? Or let's just kiss and say goodbye.
The Ben Joravsky show starts now. It is Tuesday, October 29th, and live from the Chicago Sun-Times Chicago Reader Studio on Racine Avenue, this is the Ben Joravsky Show. Today on the program, our Chicago Reader colleague and Ben's new First Tuesday co-host, Maya Dukmasova, will join us. TIF guru Tom Tresser will be in the building, so you know Ben's going to be nerding out with that guy. And Nicole Cantello of the Environmental Protection Agency. And now your host, Chicago Reader columnist, Ben Joravsky.
Hello, everybody. Ben Joravsky here. We're calling it Toss It Around Tuesday. And here's why. Great weekend. You have a good weekend, D? Yeah.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, sure. I had a great weekend. Where aren't you going to say what you say? It was 2 days ago. Get down to business. Let me just say I hung out with some friends, saw a football game, read it said, 2020. Went to a party and watched Chance the Rapper on Saturday Night Live wearing his red Chicago Teachers Union sweatshirt. Yo, Chance, thank you. Saw an opera, Santa Lucia.
Oh, God.
I did see an opera and ate chicken for dinner and got new shoes.
Oh, let me see. Oh, wow, those are boots.
Man,
those aren't shoes, those are boots.
You know what they say about these boots? They were made for walking. And so anyway, feeling really good, but woke up today, back to our work. Day 9 of the teacher strike. When's it going to end? I thought it was going to end. When I went to bed last night, the teachers union had sent out a message. We're going to stay up all night, whatever it takes to settle the strike. And apparently they couldn't cut the deal. It seems as like they have a difference of agreement, D, on how much money divides them. The teachers say it's $38 million. Lori Lightfoot and her allies say it's $100 million. I say split the difference, D. Add 38 to 100, divide by 2. Hold on. That's $69 million. That's correct. That's nothing, man. You got that much in the TIF petty cash drawer. Just take it out and end this strike once and for all, Mayor Lori Lightfoot. Anyway, when I got my bright one today, landing on the front porch as it does every day because I'm a home subscriber, D. Yes, I subscribe. I found the breaking news from Fran Spielman, a City Hall reporter for the Sun-Times. That's Fran Spielman, host of the Fran Spielman Show, which, as you know, D, is now broadcast right from this very room that we share. We share with Fran Spielman.
Yeah. Oh, she actually gave me a note here to read for you. Let me see here. Tell Ben to pick up his mess. Is that avocado I see on the... Oh, goodness.
Yeah,
Ben.
and she also gave me a note, okay, for Dennis, okay? Ben, tell Dennis to put the bong away, all right? And stop spilling the bong water, all right?
Ah, you learned how to do the note gag.
It's a great gag. Only I didn't have a piece of paper. I had to use the Sun-Times. Anyway, great story by Fran Spielman in the Sun-Times. Breaking news. All right, this is going to be kind of complicated, folks, so you gotta follow me on this one. So let's see. Last week in her budget address, Lori Lightfoot was saying that she took $300 million from the TIFs and paid $160 million of it to the schools. She bragged about it, like she's a fiduciary wizard. Then it turns out, according to Fran, she took $60 million back to pay from the schools to pay the pensions and $33 million from the schools to pay for police. Are you following that? That means $93 million went to the schools and went out of the schools. moving stuff around the table, moving all this money around the table. That's $93 million. Heck, that could solve the strike. Even if you take Lori's numbers for granted, if you say it's $100 million that divides them, there you go. We just figured out how to solve the strike. Get the teachers back to work. Just take the $93 million that was given to the schools and take it away from the schools. Money is like chessmen being moved around the board. Reminds me of the time, young Dennis, many years ago, when I was writing yet another article about TIFs and how Mayor Rahm, I think it was Mayor Rahm at the time, was taking money from the schools to pay for a TIF project. It was probably the DePaul basketball arena that I was writing about at the time. Anyway, one supporter of Rahm wrote in to say that I was misleading the public, that the money is not fungible. That's the word he used, D. I'm like, fungible? Man, these mayoral aides, they're not dumb people. They know, they're smart. Fungible is one of those ACT words. Like you score high in the ACT, you know what fungible. I didn't know what it meant, D. I got to tell you the honest truth. I had to look it up.
What's the word again?
Fungible.
Oh, it sounds like something like with fungus.
I know, it does sound very fungusy. So anyway, I went to the dictionary. I actually have a dictionary. And I looked up F-U-N-G-I-B. Basically means interchangeable. And he was saying the money is not interchangeable. Okay? So if the mayor says it can only be spent on the DePaul basketball arena in the Loop, in the South Loop, it can only be spent there. So don't mislead the people and say that it can be spent in the schools. And then I wake up and read in today's Fran Spielman story that the mayor took TIF money from the public schools, then sent it back to the public schools, then took it back from the public schools to pay for the pensions. All right? So here's the deal on interchangeability of money in the city of Chicago. It's interchangeable when they want it to be interchangeable, and it's not interchangeable when you want it to be interchangeable. So basically, they're always right and you're always wrong. When listening to any mayor or any budget guru, it pays to remember what Dennis always says about Mayor Rahm before Mayor Rahm says anything. And what is that, D?
He's smart. You're not.
That is correct. We got a great show today, everyone. Maya Dukmasova will be here, and she'll be talking about schools, and she'll be talking about 90s pop culture. D, you'll really dig this, man.
Take a chill pill, man.
Yeah, sorry, Rom. I miss you, Rom. And she'll be talking about 90s pop culture and how it's responsible for Donald Trump. Yeah, interesting stuff from Maya. She's all fired up to talk about that. And, of course, she'll be talking about the teacher strike. Young Tom Tresser will be in the studio, Mr. TIF from the TIF Illumination Project. Yes, we'll be geeking out. Tom's the guy who actually goes through 145 different annual TIF reports and counts the amount of money that's in reserve. Like, he's the one guy in the city of Chicago who's like tallying up how much of your property tax dollars is sitting in bank accounts unused. So Tom will be going through the number. He's been making the circuit, D. He's been everywhere. He came out with a report, and now he's just like making the circuit. You know what I'm saying? I expect one day to turn on Jimmy Fallon and to see Tom Tresser. Well, the way it works, Jimmy, is that the TIF money goes here and there. You know.
Get a good look at this room, live streamers. It's going to get real dorky here in about an hour.
Yes, indeed. So young Tom Tresser will be here in the studio. And, of course, Nicole Cantello from the EPA, the workers, president of Local 704, American Federation of Government Employees. She'll be talking about the Trump March. She'll be talking about their ongoing battle. Donald Trump is basically waging war against governmental employees, and particularly those at the EPA. He hates EPA employees. Why? Because they're fighting to enforce rules and regulations that protect the environment. And according to Donald Trump, there's no need to protect the environment. This is as forest fires rage throughout the state of California. It's not even forest fires, just fires raging throughout the state of California, Los Angeles, and up north in the Bay Area as well. So we'll have Nicole Cantello in here talking about the EPA, Donald Trump, the big march yesterday. Donald Trump came to town, had a lot of interesting things to say. Suddenly he's very interested in Chicago politics and Eddie Johnson. And I think he didn't weigh in on the teacher strike, and he did not weigh in on the TIF program. I'm really disappointed, you know. You would think a conservative Republican like Donald Trump, who is always talking about draining the swamp, would weigh in about the TIF program. But when they're spending public dollars on private developers, that's not waste, everybody. It's only waste when they spend public dollars on poor kids. Got that, D? All right, very good. So we got plenty of political talk ahead of us, but before we do any of that, the young man from Alton, the pride and joy of the 618, the man they call the doctor, with the news.
Hey guys, how's it going? All right, before we unpack the Chicago and or Illinois news happening this afternoon, what's so funny?
It always cracks me up, that little exchange. You go, how's it going? Not a doctor.
Let's go to the live stream chat room. They're weighing in today. Before we do the news here, Brianna weighed in. Oh, by the way, people, if you're on the download, we're trying to figure out a good Halloween costume for our host, Ben Joravsky. We're going to be doing the show on Halloween, and this is when I try to twist our host's arm to dress up. So.
Maybe I should be like Brad Pitt from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which is my favorite movie.
I don't know if you have that much time to prepare for your
actually,
costume.
all it just is, I have a Hawaiian shirt at home, and I have blue jeans. Bada boom, bada bing.
There you go. You can look like Brad Pitt's great uncle or something. Paul Pitt. All right.
I could be Paul Rudd from his new TV show.
Oh, there you go.
Who pretty much just dressed exactly the way I'm dressing right now.
Well, I think you should take Brianna's suggestion. Brianna says dress up as a TIF slush fund. That way Lori will come on the show. That's what she...
That's actually... Could you send her something for that day? Some
Brianna.
steak knives or something?
Yeah, it's in the mail, Brianna.
That's actually pretty funny. That's what I'll do. I'll dress up as... I have money, coming out of my ears and stuff.
All right, and we got here Barry weighs in. Barry says he's at his favorite watering hole. He listens while at the bar, I guess. He'll have a scotch. And he says, "Who's Roach Clip?" If you're watching a live stream, it's actually mine.
That's one of the other things Fran Spielman was complaining about. Get the Roach Clips out of the studio, D. How many times do I have to tell you? Leave the Roach Clips in the back room.
Social life and work life have crossed paths again. Sorry about that,
I haven't
everybody.
heard the word Roach Clip in a long time, man.
All right, everybody, let's unpack the Chicago and or Illinois news happening this afternoon. Send your suggestions for Ben's costume our way.
I like
at
that
Benny J Show.
TIF. I like the TIF fun thing. I think I'll come as the TIF fun.
And locally, yes, President Donald Trump was in town Monday. And yeah, guys, he hates Chicago. Surprise!
No, wait, hold on. No, let me just amend that.
Okay.
He wasn't complaining about Chicago when he donated 50 G's to Mayor Rahm's campaign fund, young Dennis.
That's correct.
All right. He wasn't complaining about Chicago when Mayor Rahm allowed the city to put that Trump sign on his building. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you. So, yeah, I think he kind of has a secret and he was not complaining about Chicago and he uses it to bash us and fire up his supporters. So I think Donald Trump likes Chicago a little more than he lets on, D.
Pizza's pretty good. All right, Ben, were you one of those out in the streets protesting the president Monday? Were you out there with the sign?
I would have, but I was writing a column.
Oh, damn. That would have been good
It's a
content.
busy Monday for me.
All right, I'm sure we'll be discussing Trump's visit to Chicago throughout
Oh, by
today's
the way,
show. What?
Since you mentioned Trump, I have to say,
What?
guess who's coming back tomorrow?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Young Monroe Anderson, back from the coast. He spent 3 weeks hanging out poolside somewhere in L.A. He's got sunglasses on and everything. He's been hanging out with Leo DiCaprio and Brad Pitt, I think. And he's all fired up, man. I talked to him today. He goes, yeah, I'll be there. I'm talking Trump. I know that's tomorrow's show, D. You don't want to get too far ahead of yourself. But when you said Trump, I thought, Monroe Anderson, he's back.
So I'm sure we'll be discussing that tomorrow, and we'll be talking about Trump's visit throughout today's show. So for the time being, we're not going to talk about it.
All right.
Besides, guys, who needs Trump when you have some of the most shadiest, sellout, scumbag politicians that we may ever see in our lives, homegrown right here in Illinois?
There's nothing quite like the state of Illinois when it comes to corruption.
We have a former governor who tried selling a Senate seat.
Hey!
He's in jail now.
Yeah, but too many years. Let him out already, okay?
We got an alderman who shook down a Burger King in his ward.
You know,
he's been indicted.
He was just looking out for the people, okay?
The feds are here all the time, raiding an elected official's office once every couple weeks.
Hold on. Uh-oh. That could be them.
Please, stop. You scare me with that.
Very sorry.
Freaks me out. And hey, what do you know? Bingo! We have another one to add to the list. Whichever one of you playing along had State Rep Louis Arroyo on your card, come and claim your prize.
Oh, my God.
Illinois Democratic State Rep Louis Arroyo has been charged with allegedly offering a state senator who was wired with a mic $2,500 a month in bribes to support electronic sweepstakes related legislation. The following comes from the Chicago Sun-Times. John Seidel, Mark Brown, and Tina Sfondellas. State Rep Louis Arroyo stood outside a Highland Park restaurant last August, looked Democratic Vernon Hills Senator Terry Link in the eye, and assured him, quote, Whatever you tell me stays between you and me.
Yeah. You and me in the front page of the Tribune and the Sun-Times.
Then, hoping to move sweepstakes gaming legislation forward in Springfield, Arroyo gave the lawmaker a nudge by telling him, quote, "We could put you on a contract. Tell me what you need." That's how I imagine he sounds.
Wow, dude, you're like Rich Little with these imitations.
Hang time, millennials. Weeks later, Arroyo allegedly gave the senator the first of what he promised would become monthly payments of $2,500. "This is the jackpot," Arroyo allegedly boasted as he handed over the check. Trouble is, the feds were listening as Arroyo cut his deal. The 13-page criminal complaint unsealed Monday against Arroyo reveals the on and off cooperation with the FBI of the state senator, who wore a wire on Arroyo in hopes of landing a reduced sentence for filing false income tax returns. Senator Link was a chief architect of the gambling package that cleared Springfield. All right, Benny J., tell us what you know about Louis Arroyo. Are you surprised by any of this? And what the hell is going on with all these sleazeball Democratic politicians in the land of Lincoln?
All right, let me just start off by saying Terry Link denies that he was the state senator wearing the wire. He told the Tribune that it was not him. So we'll have to see how that plays out. But Louis Arroyo was once on our old radio show, D. I don't know if you remember that. And he at the time...
He did make me an offer I couldn't refuse in the break room, so I mean...
Dennis, I love you. Okay, he did not actually come to the studio. You know, it's not like I never forget things like this, D, but sometimes I never forget them. He was one of those guests who said, "I'll be there," and then all of a sudden, like the day of the show, "I can't make it, so I'll call in." Remember those kinds of guests, D? Oh, my God, my favorite kind.
You love them.
Yeah, I love those guests. "I can't make it." Oh, okay, great. Anyway, so he came on. At the time, he was thinking about running for Cook County Democratic chair, the chairman of the Cook County Party against Tony Preckwinkle. He was claiming that he had the votes lined up to actually beat her, and then something happened and he didn't run in that race, but he came on our show to talk about it. So a great moment in the Ben Joravsky show history. Louis Arroyo, the day Louis Arroyo came on. And by the way, your imitation of him is really just a magnificent imitation. All right, folks, Louis Arroyo is a product of the Democratic machine. He got his start thanks to Dick Mell, the former alderman of the 33rd Ward, former committeeman of the 33rd Ward, and the father-in-law, the aforementioned Blagojevich, Dennis just alluded to, Rob Blagojevich, in the federal penitentiary in Colorado. I think we can all agree that he should have been let out long ago. 14 years is way too much for whatever he did. Don't know why he's in prison and Donald Trump is not, since Donald Trump was essentially trying to do the same thing with Ukraine that Blagojevich was doing with contractors, in which is shake them down. Anyway, enough on Blagojevich. Arroyo got his start thanks to Mel, worked his way up the ranks, became a state rep, became a big powerhouse, and he was always fighting with Joe Barrios. And now Joe Barrios, to his credit, when he said he was coming to the studio, he would show up to the studio, D, right? You remember that? And Arroyo was always fighting with Barrios, and Arroyo got the upper hand in a few of the elections, was looking like the big man on the Northwest side. He's going to replace Barrios. Well, it turns out he was a little too big for his britches, D. And so he was bragging about cutting deals, on kickbacks and everything with some unknown state senator who may have been Terry Link, but may not be Terry Link. I guess we have to wait and see. But D, Chicago politics, Chicago Democrats. I'm a loyal Democrat. I've been a Democrat all my life. But these Democrats, man, they just wear me out. The only reason I stay loyal to the Democratic Party, D, is because, in my humble opinion, the alternative is far worse. Not only is the Republican Party sleazy, but the policies they implement work against everything I believe in. But Lord, these Democrats make it hard on me, D, especially these Cook County Democrats, always wheeling and dealing. And you know what? It's like you figure one corruption, they go, we're going to root out corruption. Every year, it seems like there's another corruption case that emerges. When are they going to learn? You know, it's like, oh, it's just us talking. Yeah. Do you ever heard of anybody wearing a wire? It's like 3 different wires in this town right now.
Notice how I'm silent now after the show when we talk? I think you're wired. I'm on to you.
Yeah, man. Hold it. Please stop. City Club Gate. I haven't gotten over City Club Gate, D. And now I got to worry about Arroyo Gate. So, yeah, the Democrats. And by the way, the stakes are so low. What was he giving the guy? $2,500? Is that what it was, allegedly? $2,500.
Dude, I'd live like a king off $2,500 a month.
Well, after a month or so. But I thought it was just a one-shot deal. You're saying it's every month?
Yeah. He said he was going to do a monthly deal.
Oh, a month. Whoa, in that case, hey, come on over. Oh, you didn't say. I must have misread that. I thought it was just a one. Oh, well, would I sell my soul for $2,500 a month? Can I get back to you on that one, D? That's a tough question. On one hand, $2,500 a month is $2,500 a month. On the other hand, I only got one soul. I have to think about that one and get back to you, D. Anyway, my beloved Democrats, you let me down again. And why I stay loyal to you? Well, once again, it's because the alternative is far worse.
How about they can rent my soul for $1,100 a month? How about that?
All right, let's cut a deal on that one.
Rent-a-center style. All right. Going to the live stream chat again here. Kyle says, dress up like Gar Foreman for Halloween so you can talk about the Bulls.
Oh, any excuse. By the way, Gar Foreman, who is the general manager of the Chicago Bulls, dresses a lot like me anyway. So I could just show up the way I am and go, hi, I'm Gar Foreman. I'm going to make a bad draft choice. By the way, can I just say this about the Bulls? Since a listener raised the subject. Why didn't they play Kobe White last night? Please explain that to me, okay?
And that's the sports talk for today.
Sorry, okay.
All right, Steven weighs in and says, Ben can shave his head and dress up like Dr. D, sit at a computer, and then Dr. D can wear a Bulls hat and talk about TIFs until his face is pink.
That is a great idea. And
Role reversal.
Role reversal. I could talk about stuff that happens in Alton. All right, I can talk about the cookie man who makes that great marijuana cookie. Let's do that. Thursday, I'll be you. And you'll be me, all right?
That's all you do. When you think of me, that's all you think of, huh? Just marijuana cookies.
Well, that and you know how to handle the board. Okay. It would be totally disastrous if you put me behind. Dennis, how do I do this again? Oh, God, move over. Anyway, I think we should just keep our roles as we have them, D.
All right, we're moving on to the news of the day in Chicago. It's
moving
now
on up.
Moving on up. Mm-hmm. Please stop singing. It's now day 9 of the Chicago teacher strike, and for the 9th day in a row, school is canceled. There are so many excited kids right now.
I know. It's always that funny how the adults are, I feel sorry for the kids. Yeah, I haven't seen one kid go, oh, boy, I really miss school. No, it's not funny, D. It's very serious.
Even after a 16-hour meeting between both parties, still no deal. As the Sun-Times put it, frustrated and exasperated negotiators from the Chicago Public Schools and the Chicago Teachers Union emerged from behind closed doors early Tuesday without an agreement, despite saying that they would stay at the table until they struck a deal. Yeah, they got a little tired. We have audio to play from the mayor during her press conference, but before we do that, Ben, I have to ask you, you kind of mentioned it earlier here, 9 days. Do you think the strike would go this long?
Well, I didn't think there would be a strike, so I'm the worst person to ask about that. But 9 days. I figured they could have settled this thing last week, but what do I know, D? I'm not at the table. Nobody's at the table except the people at the table, and apparently they can't stand the sight of each other. I recall from my own limited experience with negotiations, and Maya can remember this because she was at the table with me as well when we were dealing with the old bosses of the Chicago Sun-Times who have since moved on. It was very difficult. And from time to time, the other side would feel compelled to lecture us. Remember those great lectures, Maya, that would come from the other negotiators on the other side? They would lecture us, what you don't understand about the Taft-Hartley bill. And then they would start talking about the Taft-Hartley bill. And nobody on my side of the table knew what the heck the Taft-Hartley bill was. So negotiations. Do you ever been in negotiations? It's one side wants the other side to give up something. The other side doesn't want to give it up. And so, since none of them are missing school, it's like they got all day to negotiate. So, I don't know. It's pretty, to quote Stacey Davis Gates, it's pretty petty. They probably could have settled it last week, but I'm not at the table, so I don't really know what's being said.
All right, our Chicago Reader colleague, Maya Dukmasova, has joined us. Maya, you can help us out here. We're going to be doing the show on Halloween. Be thinking of a good Halloween costume that Ben can wear for the live stream.
A Chicago Bull.
A Chicago Bull. All right.
That's all you need, Ben.
I just put on a Bulls hat. Bada boom, bada bing. Okay?
Bada boom, bada bing.
How come no one's falling in with my Brad Pitt idea from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, all right?
Take a guess why.
I'm going to be Brad Pitt, okay? I'm Brad Pitt.
Brad Pitt's weird uncle.
By the way, I cannot wait to take the deep dive with Maya about 90s pop culture. Folks, hang around for that. When we're done talking schools and we're done talking about eviction court, We have Maya on 90s pop culture. D, you can weigh in on that because that's your wheelhouse.
All right.
90s pop culture.
Can't wait. All right, first up, let's talk about the teachers. This morning, thousands of teachers began marching at 8:30 a.m. from Oscar Mayer Magnet School in Lincoln Park. I was assuming that it wasn't, but okay. To the nearby site of reoccurs. Wait, hold on a second here. They were at Lincoln Park, 8:30 a.m. Ben, for those who may not know, why exactly did the teachers meet at this location this morning for their rally?
Oscar Mayer
At the rally that they had.
Oh, they went to Lincoln Yards, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, they went to Lincoln Yards. Well, they went right across the street from the Hideout, the bar that Maya and I will be situated at next Tuesday for First Tuesday. But anyway, they went right across the street from the Hideout to the little soccer field that's like ground zero for the Lincoln Yards mega development, which will cost you, the taxpayers, about $1.3 billion. That's billion with a B of your property tax dollars over the next 23 years. You know, it's funny. It's always interesting the way Maya and I are going to be talking about this in a little while, but it's always interesting the way that defenders of TIF programs, whenever anyone in the city of Chicago dares to point out that our priorities may be out of whack because we have $1.3 billion for an upscale development in an already gentrifying neighborhood that does not need a boost to develop, they'll say, well, Ben, you don't understand. Funny you, little silly little you. That's $1.3 billion over 23 years. So it's not like it's sitting in a bank right now. Oh, duh. I'm so dumb. I didn't know that. Dude, if you could commit $1.3 billion for an upscale development in an already gentrifying neighborhood that doesn't need the boost anyway, then you could commit $1.3 billion to hire nurses and counselors and social workers and librarians and teachers in poor schools. But I think the reality is you don't want those people in the neighborhoods around the poor schools hanging around the city of Chicago. So just let those schools starve, fall apart. Then you go, see, that's how the marketplace works. People don't want to go there, Ben. Stop trying to boost up the public school system when the people are walking on their own out of the system. Anyway, D, sorry about that. That's why they showed up at Lincoln Yards, to sort of dramatize the whacked out priorities of a city that would spend $1.3 billion on an upscale development in an already gentrifying neighborhood when it says it cannot afford nurses, teachers.
Teachers, students, and even our dear friend and grassroots organizer, Amisha Patel, stepped up to the podium to speak.
Good morning, Chicago!
Yeah, it's Amisha.
Once again, the streets of the city are red because the streets belong to the people.
I'm sorry, you looked at me like just off really fast there. Amisha Patel, frequent guest on the Ben Joravsky Show. It seems like the Ben Joravsky Show guests are getting a lot of playing time, D, in the mainstream media these days, thanks to this teacher strike, huh?
All right, now to the mayor. Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot, along with CPS CEO Janice Jackson, gave us the update after their 16-hour meeting with the teachers. Get the coffee going. Here is the mayor.
It was a late night, and I want to thank all the people who were involved and at the table till well past 2 a.m. We came so close, nearly to a tentative agreement on the biggest issues at stake. The two that CTU defined for us as their core issues, class size and staffing. These are the issues that CTU has told us from day one are the most critical to getting a deal done. For months, we've heard the union say they needed additional support staff and class size relief on top of the generous compensation package on the table that will pay the average teacher nearly $100,000 a year. And so we made significant compromises to resolve these issues. $70 million in additional staffing, including a nurse and a social worker in every school, in writing. $25 million in class size relief, in writing. Commitments to direct additional resources toward our high-needs schools. We put it all in writing because on these matters, we fundamentally agree with the union. Our students need and deserve fully staffed, fully resourced schools, and our teachers can do their best work with manageable class sizes. All told, this is a $500 million offer, and yet we still do not have a deal.
All right, if you're in fundamental agreement with the teachers on these issues, why did it take a strike to get you to make this agreement? And if you're in a fundamental agreement with the teachers on the issues, why is this a compromise? A compromise implies that you gave something up. So if you're fundamentally agreement with the teachers, why wasn't this something you were offering from the day you were sworn in as mayor. That's what I'm saying, D. A lot of posturing on both sides. A lot of I open up the newspaper every day, and people call me up every day. Go, Ben, why can't you get your? They always call Stacey Davis. Why get your girl back? And you're like, Stacey Davis Gates listens to me every day. Get your girl to go back to school. Get the teachers back to work. They got what they wanted. I'm like, if it was something that the mayor fundamentally agreed on from the get-go, why did it take a strike to get here? Why does it always take a strike, like people in the streets of the city of Chicago, to get the city of Chicago to allocate resources to things that people want? I find that hard to just wrap my brain around. I just wrote about this last week in regards to Amazon. Plenty of money for Amazon, but there was no money for the schools. It took a strike to get it. So I'm glad that they're close, D.
I mean, can I just jump in here?
Go ahead.
And remind folks about the conditions that some of our students in the city of Chicago are trying to learn in. Attendance numbers from this year, these were preliminary because I guess the CPS still hasn't released the final numbers, but okay, Simeon High School in Auburn Gresham, 98% black, 90% low income. Geometry classes of 40 students at Simeon. Human geography classes, 39 students. Physics, 39 students. Advanced algebra with trigonometry, 38 students. Biology classes, 38 students. All right? And you may think to yourself, all right, these are high school students who, can deal with being in a classroom for however long the lesson is. You assume that folks know how to behave themselves by the time they're in, advanced algebra with trigonometry. Okay, the assumptions, right? But all right, what about the elementary schools? Walter Q. Gresham Elementary School, also in Auburn Gresham, a level 1+ school, but it's 97% black, almost 97% low income. Pretty good school, right? Which is probably all the more reason why there's so many students there. 3rd grade classrooms with 49 students. 49 students in a 3rd grade classroom. Have you ever been around 49 3rd graders? Like, can you imagine being in a room with 49 3rd graders?
Yeah, that's way too many.
Yeah,
that's like twice as at least twice as much as what you should have.
Even per the contract now.
Yeah.
Like, they're not supposed to have this many students, and there's like nothing is being done to enforce the current caps. Then you've got a class of 45 6th graders at Skinner, which is a level 1+ school. It's in the near here actually, and it's generally like a very desirable school, racially diverse. 45 students in a class of 6th graders. There's a bunch of other schools. I mean, most of the elementary schools, the top 20 elementary schools with just enormous class sizes are all majority black, majority low income schools. I mean, Frank Bennett Elementary, it's 95% black, 92% low income, 42 kindergartners in one class.
42 kindergartners. Wow.
Can you imagine being with 42 like 5 or 6 year olds in a room trying to teach them something?
No, just trying to keep your mind together. So,
and this isn't like a new thing.
Yeah.
I mean, like the the teachers at Bond Elementary that I wrote about last week, they were saying that like this year, it wasn't even as bad as, for example, a year or two ago, where, one of the 2nd grade teachers there had 38 students, 38 2nd graders. And so I know from what I hear, the mayor will not budge on a 5-year contract, that it has to be a 5-year contract. So, I mean, I can see that it's all the more reasons why they're fighting so hard to get these class sizes lower. Because 5 years is an entire elementary education for a student. 5 years in which you can just wind up year after year being a kid in a class with 40 other students, getting your elementary education, and God forbid you might have special needs. God forbid you might have some kind of, psychological issues, emotional issues, because you're not getting what you need at home. You've got stressful situations going on in your neighborhood. You're not getting enough to eat, like a lot of these students are. This is generations. This is generations of students in our city who are not getting their basic needs met, like much less a proper education, because of the conditions we've created in our schools. So, I think a lot of people, from what I hear, a lot of people who aren't like immediately touched by these issues, either because they work in the schools or, are related to people who work in the schools or have children going to these schools. A lot of people look at the strike and they're like, well, why can't they, why do they have to go out on strike? Why couldn't they deal with the mayor, in the course of normal negotiations and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I think that, the predominant narrative that's come out from both the city and also various, mainstream media establishment and the editorial boards and stuff. It's like, well, like, here is what's possible. Here are the rules. We can't like move money from here to there. The TIF funds don't have anything to do with the school budget, which is like a separate, it's a separate line item on your property tax bill and blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, all of this stuff this is just like words on paper. This is all like, we make up these rules. Like the entire civil rights movement was based on challenging things that were rules that were, you can't vote. You can't vote unless you pass this insane literacy exam. Like like just because it's the rule, just because it's the law, it doesn't mean that it's right or moral or desirable or better for our society. So,
or above being changed.
Yeah. Right.
Or, yeah, no, I hear you. And we were talking about this before you came in. I was anyway. The story in the Sun-Times today, which just illustrates the point you were making. Fran Spielman's story about how Mayor Lori Lightfoot kicked back $300 million of TIF money, bragged about it to the taxing bodies. $160 million of it went to the schools, but then she took back $60 million, I think it was, to pay for pension obligations. And then there was, by the way, she took $33 million from the public schools to pay for police that are in the schools. In other words, the money just flows around and around. And whenever
the $33 million to the police and the schools, that should really, your head should really be popping off and rolling into the gutter, because the math there is like crazy, right? Because like police officers who are city employees who then go work in the schools, so then they become they get paid through the school district budget, which is a separate budget, even though it's controlled by the city. So the math, like the numbers just float from one side of the paper to the other. The pots of money from which these expenses are paid for are switched around. It's like, but we know the money is there. Otherwise, they wouldn't be offering it to Lincoln Yards.
Absolutely.
Or Jeff Bezos or the 78 folks, like that. Clearly, there's some kind of money anticipated there.
Yeah, and by the way, what I kind of feel sorry for, just in a little way, are the reporters who are sitting there trying to make sense. And you've been there. I know you've been there.
These people, yes, they're
these numbers just go flying at you, and you're just trying to.
It's very hard.
It's very hard. I always tell people 101 of basic reporting, just like add up the totals and make sure they reach the total that they say it's going to be. I remember that when we were negotiating a contract one time, one of the representatives that we were negotiating with came in and said, there's all these deficits in our budget, and it totals up to, I forget what the amount was. Let's say it was $50 million. I can't remember. And so the first thing I did was I took a look at all the numbers on the piece of paper they gave it to see if it added up to $50 million. I go, well, guys, at least you got the numbers to add up to $50 million. I don't know if they're true or not. I got a little chuckle at the negotiating board. By the way, that's the other. Oh, Dee, you have more updates to play.
Oh, we just got one more piece of audio from Mayor Lightfoot's press conference.
All right.
The CTU's bargaining team continues to move the goalpost and bring in more issues that do not belong in any collective bargaining contract. They have now informed us that they want us to bargain over several other matters that are legislative in matters in nature, not contract issues. For example, they're demanding that I support a specific bill about an elected school board, a bill that I fundamentally think is flawed and rejected. Look, I make clear many times that I support an elected representative school board, but that is a citywide conversation that must be had. It is a policy that must be changed through the legislative process in Springfield and with many stakeholders at the table, not just the CTU leadership. They also want to negotiate over a change to the state labor law that governs what issues the union can strike over. Again, this is a legislative issue, not a contract issue. Are we really keeping our kids out of class unless I agree to support the CTU's full political agenda wholesale? If the CTU wants a deal, there's a deal to be had right now on the table. It's an excellent offer that will bring unprecedented equity-focused investments to our school system.
I just think it's very interesting how it's like she's saying all this as if the teachers union leaders on the other side of the table don't know what they're talking about. Like this what she just said, I feel like it, like the idea is that you broadcast this to the wider population. The teachers union is asking for this stuff that we have, like, that doesn't belong at the negotiating table. So it sort of makes the teachers union look really, I don't know, out of touch or dumb or whatever, like something like that they're not speaking the same language. But like, if this is actually what's happening at the bargaining table, they're not bringing this stuff in there, it's not like Stacey and Jesse Sharkey and all these people don't know that these aren't issues that are traditionally part of the contract. If they're talking about it at the bargaining table, that means that they see an opportunity in this moment to get some fundamental systemic changes happening here. That they're using their moment of leverage over the city, over this, the city leaders to try to get them to move in what they see as the right direction. And I just find it like, it's so, I don't know. I mean, I understand the kind of political gamesmanship of bringing up the kids and, talking about how this is keeping our kids out of class because these union leaders are completely out of touch and sort of have completely detached themselves from the issues of the day. It makes them sound crazy, but like a lot of our children are already like in situations where the schools are completely broken, where like it can't get any worse. Like they've already, survived school closures and had to move to new schools that are now, overtaxed and overcrowded. They don't have the support that they need in terms of, counselors and social workers and nurses and all of that stuff. Like these kids that are being kept out of school for this strike and are losing 10 days of their education. Like if it wasn't, I mean, kids in the city have lost years of their education. Years. They've dropped out of school due to city policies that affect their schools. People have wound up dead. These kids have wound up dead because of what's happening in our schools. So it's just, I don't know. I guess I'm not really sure who that rhetoric is aimed at. But I really think it must be people who have no idea what's going on in a regular neighborhood school in this city.
Yeah, I think if we think about it, we can know who. I love it when my guest just calls me in the middle of the show.
Phone on silent, man.
Yeah,
Come on.
it's on you to mute the phone, man.
I know. It's just classic. Big Tommy Tresser calling while we're doing this show. All right, Tommy. All right, look, here's what I'm saying. There is a narrative that the mayor's people have put out about the teachers union. The teachers union is obstinate. The teachers union wanted to strike. The teachers union wanted to send a message to Lori Lightfoot because they wanted to let her know that they were there, that they existed, that even though they supported Tony Preckwinkle and lost, they were still a force. These are talking points that the mayor's people have been putting out for the last, I want to say, at least, I'm losing track of time here, but at least a month, if not longer. These are talking points that you could see articulated in the newspapers and the columns of people who support Lori Lightfoot Lightfoot's position and editorials. It's in the Sun-Times editorial today. It's in the Tribune editorial every day. It's in a Tribune column today. Johnny Cass writes about it all the time. So these are talking points. And so when she says what she said, it's to reinforce this narrative that the teachers union is not looking out for the best interests of the kids. They're looking out for their political interests. So
who isn't looking out for their political interests? And if it's not happening during a strike at a bargaining table, these larger political discussions and arguments, like where is it happening? It's happening in back rooms with Jeff Bezos. It's happening it's happening in legislative meetings and city council meetings that nobody attends. That like we have, it's all politics. Mm-hmm. And the teachers are trying to, fight a situation in which like the way that state-run institutions are functioning now is completely warped. We've completely stopped prioritizing direct funding of services to citizens, to residents of our city, of our state. This is like they're fighting a larger, like it's all part of a larger tidal wave of sort of, neoliberal policies that have affected all cities across the country and states and the way that public services are funded. They're like trying to wage a small, battle, like trying to build like a wall of sandbags against the tsunami, basically. And it's like, if not here, where? Where are they going to have more leverage? Where are they going to be able to push this conversation more forcefully? The truth is that, I mean, even if they got all that they wanted, it would be so far away from actually solving a lot of these problems.
What is
like
needed?
the way that our cities work now is like the only thing that's seen as the thing that's seen by politicians as the primary goal is to get capital investment from private entities into the cities. That is, it's like this, same kind of logic of trickle down economics. Like if we bring private capital to fill these spaces that have been, neglected and abandoned by industrial changes, by economic changes, by, the real estate bubble, whatever, like, we have these swaths of land that aren't generating much for the city. They're not, and so the solution is like, let's bring in private money. Let's stimulate private kind of entities, big corporations, to bring capital into the city. But every time that this happens, it's like, the city has to like prostitute itself, essentially. I mean, actually, you know what? I take that back because that's really, frankly, offensive to sex work, which is honest work. The city is like selling off itself in a way that doesn't generate any benefit for, like, what is Lincoln Yards gonna do for, the 49 third graders at Gresham Elementary? Mm-hmm. What did Millennium Park do for them? What did Maggie Daly Park do about this problem?
Or the 606.
Or the 606.
What connection does it have to the reality of the world they're facing?
Right.
Yeah.
We keep being sold this narrative that if we just let the private money stream into the city, that is going to solve all of our problems. Like, it's not solving the problems of the 49 third graders at Gresham Elementary or their teachers.
Speaking of, Stephen weighed in and said Ben should be 49 third graders for Halloween. That would really drive the class size crisis home for all the people out there.
Or a harried teacher trying to keep order and sense and teach kids.
Honestly, it's a really great idea. I mean, I'm sure that there are enough listeners of the show that could volunteer their children to just be in a gaggle around Ben for a few hours on Halloween.
Could you imagine 49 kids in this room?
They couldn't fit in this room.
Yeah. No.
And it's third graders, right? So like, what are you supposed to? You got to teach them like
Math.
Yeah, you got like
That's hard
you know,
enough
long
already
division.
for me.
Is that what you learn in third grade? Like,
Oh.
I'm pretty sure.
Long division? I don't know. It's been
Is that
so,
a little too early?
You know
in
what?
Russia, you learn it in third grade.
Can I just say something, Maya? Third grade was closer to one of us than the other one. So third grade was a lot further along.
I actually never went to third grade.
Would you skip it?
Yeah, because I was old when I moved to America. I was old enough to go to fourth grade.
She knew what fungible meant when she was in second grade. I didn't learn that until some Rom guy told me. Look, here's the other thing when I listened to Lori Lightfoot's comments. First of all, as Maya knows, we've sat through negotiations. Lord knows what if they did mention the board of if they did mention the elected school board bill or the language in the contract that determines what they can strike for. I don't know what the context was. So I've been in union negotiations where people get on tangents out of frustration because they can't get the other side to agree. And the next thing you know, things are said by one person on one side of the table that they probably shouldn't have said. I can remember some comments regarding our negotiator that the other side said that was kind of nasty and low. And so it's tense. So I don't know what the context was when they said it, but I will say this. What that dramatizes to me, Maya, on top of everything else that you're talking about, is the total lack of communication between the Chicago Teachers Union and Lori Lightfoot. Let's just think about it. This is a very real issue that the Chicago Teachers Union has been championing for many years, an elected school board. Lori Lightfoot ran on that issue. She said she wanted an elected school board. Now, as we all know, the Chicago Teachers Union endorsed Toni Preckwinkle. I believe they overplayed their hand in that endorsement and went far too strong for her than she warranted, and used a lot of rhetoric in regards to Lori Lightfoot that was probably come back to haunt them, because that's probably why she doesn't like them. But the reality is this, they're all grown-ups, and they should have had a meeting like within a month, if not sooner, to talk about what do they have in common, what's on their agenda that they have in common, and at the top of that list would be an elected school board. Quite clearly, that meeting was not held. So this is to your point. They're raising issues right now at a negotiating table. Maybe. We don't know really what's being raised because we're just going on what one side says. But let's say it's true. They're raising issues that should have been discussed in terms of just like general political conversations that people have with one another. Obviously, that conversation was not held. Obviously, there was no connection between one of the largest, most significant public workers employees union in the city of Chicago and the newly elected mayor of the city of Chicago.
Yeah. Yeah, and honestly, like, I also feel like it's... The teachers are probably never going to get the thanks they deserve for actually trying to use their moment of leverage to fight on these bigger issues. Because, you know, who else is like trying to fundamentally kind of challenge or somehow shift or just poke at this larger systemic problem here that is tied up with laws in Springfield, that is tied up with, like, you know, other kind of siloed issues. But, like, what other union is at the table with the city trying to get, you know, trying to push the city on these issues that, you know, I think a lot of people in the city think it's messed up that there's, you know, all this TIF money is going to these private developers, Sterling Bay and stuff. Like, the same people who are outraged about the TIF deals are now saying, oh, but like the teachers are inappropriately demanding, you know, changes in how schools are funded or changes in how budgeting is happening on a city level, and that has nothing to do with their contract. It's like, who else is going to do it? What do you think, the police union is going to bring that up in their negotiations? Are the firefighters doing it? Like, are the other whatever the AFSCME or the city worker, you know, clerical worker unions, are they fighting on that issue? You know.
Well, no, clearly, yeah, no, that's a valid point.
I mean, I'm not trying to like totally trash other unions, but I'm just saying I don't see other unions like who else is going to do this, because what you're up against is like massive lobbying and massive amounts of money from private interests who push our legislators on the state and county and city levels to make laws and rules that are beneficial to them.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you. Listen, this is clearly a moment where the needs of a teacher in a classroom merge with the needs of the children in his or her classroom. So in other words, it's not in the teacher's best interest to have 49 kids at a third grade class.
Or the students.
Right, or the students. So the two needs merge. And so what the teachers are saying to the city of Chicago is that you have to allocate more money to the schools to deal with this. Now, a similar situation, I can make this argument, if I was the head of the Fraternal Order of Police, think about that for a moment, me as the head of the Fraternal Order of Police, would be to say, when you say to the city of Chicago, you need to invest more money in mental health clinics because we're dealing with people who are losing their minds all the time. We are not equipped as police officers to deal with people who are crazy or are having breakdowns, and we shouldn't have to deal with that. There should be a mechanism in the city of Chicago that alleviates us of that responsibility so that we're not going into a situation where crazy people are fighting and have lost control of themselves. There should be social workers or counselors or more mental health facilities. That would be a similar situation. I can't imagine it happening, but you know what? Under a different set of circumstances, it would happen. Think about all the police employees who are having their own fundamental issues with mental health, the number of suicides that police are. These are interchangeable issues. So to your point, it would be as though the police union, instead of just concentrating on things like how much pay they get, what vacation time they get,
what kind
pension,
of protections they have in their contract to shield them from misconduct allegations.
All that too.
Yeah.
They talked about these larger issues that make the day-to-day life of a police officer that much more difficult.
Right.
And yeah, so I'm with you. I give the teachers credit for raising these issues. And, you know, it's funny, they get criticized, Maya. I've seen this criticism in the mainstream press, like when they talk about more nurses and librarians, then people will say, well, they just want more jobs.
I really
you can't win.
I've heard this a lot. It's like that the union, that really what the teachers union is fighting for is more members for the Chicago Teachers Union. They just want more members. The labor union, the labor movement is dying, and they just need more members. Listen, I haven't heard a single teacher. I've talked to like dozens of teachers since the strike started. I haven't heard a single teacher say anything about worrying about the sort of disappearance of their union as a central issue here. They cannot do right by their students if they've got 38 second graders in a class. They can't. And half of them have special needs, or a quarter of them has special needs, and they need clothing and they need food because they don't have food at home. They're homeless. Like, it's, yeah, again, like the rhetoric of people who really just don't know teachers, don't spend time with teachers that teach at regular neighborhood schools, and certainly, you know, aren't sending their kids to schools in which, you know,
by the way,
they're in a class of 38 peers in second grade.
Our worlds all sort of came together this morning. The teachers staged a march to Lincoln Yards, to the little soccer field that's right across the street from the hideout.
Yeah.
And which is just like a delightful little twist from the whole Lincoln Yards situation, because I know a lot of people in a lot of neighborhoods all over the city of Chicago want more money spent on recreation, more money spent on one of my pet crusades for years was more indoor running tracks. I was just talking to Conrad Worrell, where there's one that's under construction on the far south side. That's it, one public. So we don't have any at the moment. And yet, as a byproduct of the Lincoln Yards product, follow me on this, it's in between the time when they got the money or they got the contract, the deal with the city to fund the project, and when they actually get started with the project, they removed the old municipal fleet facility that was across the street from the hideout, and they've temporarily replaced it with a soccer field. And so the teachers had their organizing a rally there today at that soccer field.
Yeah.
So that soccer field's probably being put to good use.
Well,
I could see my next guest figured things out. Tom Tresser calling me in the middle of the show. Clearly, Tom didn't quite understand things. We're going to bring him on, but before we do that, I want to change the subject briefly.
well, wait. Speaking of the hideout.
Oh, yeah.
Next Tuesday at 6:30 It's the first Tuesdays with Maya and Ben.
correct.
Mick has passed on the baton. You and I are going to be talking more about the teacher strike with Stacey Davis Gates. Ben, please accept my Facebook invitation to be a co-host on the Facebook event page so you can then spread the word to your network.
Okay.
I'm putting you on blast on the air.
Well, Mick Dumke used to do the same thing. Just so you know,
Yeah,
it's
well,
some
so now,
similarities.
please
Wait,
do
can
that.
I do that right now while
Yeah,
we're on the phone?
well,
Oh, yeah, while we're on the air. Go for it. That's awesome. Great
Why don't we do that
podcasting.
when we're at the break?
Yeah,
You can
please,
show me how
Dennis,
to do
please
it.
make sure he does that.
No, we'll do
So-
it at the break. Maya can show me.
Okay.
A millennial leading the way.
Perfect. So, and the second thing is I just want to encourage everyone to check out the Reader this week or online tonight or tomorrow for my story about the strange case of recording equipment in Chicago's eviction courtrooms, which it took years of lobbying by a bunch of groups who care about equal access to justice in this county to get recording equipment into the eviction courtrooms that's in Chicago at the Daily Center, which process like 20,000 cases a year. In the early 2000s, there were all kinds of budget cuts and they took out the recording equipment. There were no court reporters there. And so no records were being created of these cases. So if somebody wanted to appeal, they couldn't do it, really, because there was no transcript. So finally, the state allocated like $370,000 for this equipment, and they started installing it back in June. And that joke about like how many whoever does it take to install a light bulb. This is like that kind of situation where they took them like 4 months to install microphones in 5 courtrooms. And then for like another month, the recording lights were on, but no recordings were being made because of some kind of software problem or something. And I heard about this a couple weeks ago. I started calling around about this last week and asking judges about it. And magically, as of last Friday, everything is working finally. So now for the first time in like 16 years, a record is being created of every eviction case that's happening in Chicago courtrooms. And
The power of the
article
press.
The article explains why we should care about it. So
All right,
check it out.
check that one out. And finally, before you go, Lindy West in the New York Times on Sunday, the New York Times columnist, wrote an essay, which I read, about how 90s pop culture has led to Donald Trump. The essay was filled with references to 90s pop culture that eluded me, although I did recognize a few of the names. Paul Rudd is referred to.
Way to go.
That's
yeah.
great.
Yeah, I know.
I recently didn't know who Paul Rudd was, and I realized that I knew who he was all along, but I just didn't, I couldn't put the face to the name.
But it's I actually agree with the main thrust of the essay. I don't know if you do. We were had a chance to talk about it. And that is that there was this scornful attitude emanating from much of pop culture in the 90s. And I think it's gone in the O's as well. That people who are involved in social movements are somehow or other social geeks and misfits who are just doing that because they're not with the cool crowd. And it's like this theme, like you take somebody who's really into saving the environment and you make fun of them, and
Tree huggers and
tree
such?
huggers, that kind of thing. And that was her theme of the essay. And then she used all these examples from all these different movies. I think Paul Rudd was in I forget, I don't have the paper in front of me, but he was in that movie with that dealt with Mean Girls or something like that in some high school. I forget the name of the high
10
school.
Things I Hate About You?
No,
He was in Clueless.
Clueless.
yeah.
That's me. I'm clueless about 90s
Yeah.
pop. Look at, he saw all those movies back in the day. Thank you, Clueless. He let me, by the way, hang there for about a minute before he came to my rescue. Oh, you mean Clueless, Ben?
Teamwork.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, Clueless. So, yeah, what do you think about that?
I mean, I just think that it's like a, I see where the analysis comes from, but I think that like the pop culture was just like a symptom of a wider, I think, phenomenon in American life in the 90s, which is like this, post-Cold War, end of history type attitude of like, there's nothing, the Soviet Union is defeated. There's really nothing left to be fighting. This was like that window of time between 1991 and 2001 before you got like now the terrorists are the enemies. That window of time in which like the 90s was like a magical moment in American culture, because it wasn't just in movies and cartoons and pop culture that you had this sense that like everything is fine and the people fighting for some kind of change are just, just kind of off the deep end or misfits or whatever. You had the same sense in politics, in a lot of other corners of society. And she's right to point out that like this is really, we're talking about white culture and white people, because like people, lots of people in America had no choice but to fight in the 90s. I mean, I encourage people to check out. It's kind of a fun little essay.
It's a fun little essay. All right, Maya, thank you so much. Tom Tresser on deck.
Maya, before you go, Bruce Rauner would like to say something.
Yay for our teachers! Yay for our teachers!
She loves that.
I
love it.
I love it. Well, Maya and I, one more time, will be at the Hideout next Tuesday, November 5th, 6:30 p.m., and 1354 West Wabansia, and we're going to take a break. We're going to bring Tom Tresser on, and while we're at the break, Maya's going to teach me how to do that Facebook thing, so more people can show up. So we'll take a break, bring Tom Tresser on. We'll be right back. Did you know that 40% of the people in Illinois opt to be cremated? Well, it's true. And Chicagoland Cremation Options honors their wishes by providing cremation services directly to the general public. Chicagoland Cremation Options provides an affordable, ethical, and easy cremation arrangement, whether in person or online. Save thousands and streamline the process by going directly to Chicagoland Cremation Options. It's a family-owned business operated by my good friend, Douglas Klein. Here's how you reach them: ChicagolandCremationOptions.com. One more time, ChicagolandCremationOptions.com.
While Ben learns about Facebook, I want to tell all of you about the new Sun-Times political web series. Well, I say new. Same show, just a different format. It's the Fran Spielman Show, and it's now available as a podcast. That's right, Fran Spielman is our studio roommate, and she features weekly interviews with the lawmakers, journalists, and others who are shaping our city. Oh, look at Ben. He's learning. Okay, that's how you do it, Ben. Yeah, post that thing on Facebook.
We're having some technical difficulties right now with the D.
I think that's the show's slogan by now. And now you can listen to her show, Fran Spielman, on all, that's ALL, all of your favorite podcast apps. Hey, Fran holds nothing back. She goes deep into City Hall to bring you the real scoop on Chicago politics. So head to City Hall with Fran and get even more great political coverage from the Chicago Sun-Times. Listen and subscribe now at suntimes.com/Fran, F-R-A-N -show. That's suntimes.com/Fran -SHOW.
Hey, everybody, what you're about to hear are the piano stylings of Jeff Manuel. Man, listen to Jeff go. Jeff Manuel has been playing piano around Chicago for years. He's played for conventions, for celebrities, played in basement bars with blues bands. He's played at prestigious social clubs, fine restaurants, and in the intimacy of private homes. Book Jeff Manuel at jeffemanuelpianist.com. Don't worry, I'll spell his name at the end of this commercial. You know what Chicago Magazine said? They said that Jeff Manuel is, quote, as comfortable with Chopin as he is with Cole Porter. He's excellent and his performance is joyous. He offers an elegant stream of compositions and interpretations that entertains the mind but won't hurt the ears. To hear more of Jeff Manuel's work and to book Jeff for your next event, go to jeffmanuelpianist.com. I'm going to spell it out for you, people. J-E-F-F. M as in Mary, A, N as in Nancy, UELPIANIST.com. Take it away, Jeff Manuel.
All right, people, hour number 2 of your Ben Joravsky show for Tuesday, October 29th is just moments away. But before we get into said hour number 2, we need to thank the following unions again for sponsoring our program. First up, it's the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers, not Aerosmith, Local 126 and District 8, the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 9, the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 150, and of course, today's show is brought to you by our good friends at the Chicago Federation of Labor. Hour number 2, let's go. It is Tuesday, October 29th, and live from the Chicago Sun-Times Chicago Reader Studio on Racine Avenue, this is the Ben Joravsky Show. In this hour of the program, get a pen, get paper, take notes, because TIF guru Tom Tresser is here, and it's Nicole Cantello of the Environmental Protection Agency. And now your host, Chicago Reader columnist, Ben Joravsky.
Tom Tresser's in the studio. He's the TIF guru. You've been hearing him for the last several years. He's like Chicago's own variation. Paul Revere. I use that line on a lot of different people, but he's riding around warning us about the pending doom of our city that stashes so much of its money into TIFs. And he's the head of a group, or he's a part of a group called TIF Illumination Project. Welcome to the show, young Thomas.
Thank you, Ben. And I'm going to say it's all your fault.
Yeah, all right, let's go back in time. I got the TIF bug in the 90s and spent about 10 years or so writing about TIFs. And at some point, our paths cross on this issue, so talk about it.
We have a visual. I don't know for your...
Oh, my God, you have a visual.
I throw nothing away.
Wow.
I am holding in my hands,
my
for your
goodness.
radio audience, a flyer from 2008. It says, "It's your money. Would you believe $500 million in 2006? The truth about TIFs." There's a picture of a young Ben.
Not that young, man. A younger.
And it says, "A talk by Ben Jaworski, the political reporter," goes on, and it's for the Greater Lincoln Park Democracy for America meeting on February 12th, 2008. Ladies and gentlemen, I submit this artifact as Exhibit 1 for the people.
I'm going to grab that and put it in the camera.
Put it in the camera.
Very good. Yeah, here we go. And you were the host that night,
I
correct?
was.
And it was at DePaul. I remember this.
That's right.
Good
And
God, I still have that sweater.
so we had about 50 people there, and we were trying to build this progressive organization in Lincoln Park, okay? And you came, and I remember you waving a property tax bill. This is my Ben Jaworski imitation. "Hey, your property tax bill is lying to you."
That's good.
That's wow. Dang, man. Can you do a Donald Trump?
Oh, no,
Something
no,
about the Bulls.
I wouldn't dare.
You got to say something. First of all, you have to say man, and then you have to say something about your beloved Bulls. But yeah, no, I was, in those days, I was going around. Oh, my goodness, Tommy, bring back memories.
That's
I was
right.
going around to various neighborhood groups. I mean, I've talked about TIFs in so many different settings, and you've really picked up the mantle and taken it one step further. But I would go and I would bring a property tax bill.
That's
and
right.
The proof, the reason I brought a property tax bill was to show how even though your property taxes went up to finance the TIF funds, to be deposited into various TIF bank accounts, it was not recorded on your property tax bills. They're lying to you.
So that's what I remember from that meeting, and I go, "What the hell?" Now the following year, I got into the No Game Chicago. So this is what this artifact is right here. We fought the Olympic bid, so it was all the Olympics all the time. Mayor Daley was like obsessed with bringing the games to Chicago. He stopped governing, I think, the city for 2 years, and raised about $90 million, and everybody was hypnotized.
Not everybody.
Well, there's one person in the room besides myself who wasn't hypnotized, but most Chicago civics were kind of,
civics
hypnotized or seduced or threatened.
Yeah.
And I was told by many civic leaders that they dasn't speak against the games for fear of the mayor. Well, this artifact right here is from across the street from the Michael Reese Hospital site. And that's what it really was all about. It was about greed and corruption. But we found No Game Chicago, and that's another artifact here.
Oh my God.
I bring you
Wow.
better schools. Hey, that's a theme that hasn't gotten away, has it?
Oh my goodness.
No
yeah.
Olympic Games, No Game Chicago.
Thank God the live stream worked today.
Yeah, no, he has all these.
Lovely.
No, that's so good, Tom. The better schools, no Olympic Games. Yeah, that fight took place. And at one point, I like to say that a big aid in that fight, whether they realize it or not, and I'm just going to give them a shout out, the Fraternal Order of Police.
Yes, they protested on the day that the Olympics came to review our area.
Yeah.
And we protested in the Federal Plaza while they walked around.
And God bless them.
City
I
Hall.
always said Fraternal Order of Police helped keep Chicago from having to spend untold hundreds of millions of dollars on that frivolous
Of course, No
spectacle.
Game Chicago went to Switzerland.
That is correct.
In the summer of 2009 and 2008 actually, and we invited you to come to Switzerland with us to the headquarters of the IOC. And if you remember this,
I vaguely remember
you would
this.
have been there to see us deliver the famous Book of Evidence to the IOC.
Oh
Now this is an actual artifact, one of the few remaining copies. And you know whose letter starts out the Book of Evidence, Ben Jaworski?
No, who's?
Your letter.
Oh, yeah, I remember I wrote that letter, yeah.
It says, an open letter to the IOC, why you don't want to give Chicago the Olympics, Ben Jaworski, April 2nd, 2009. We made 150 copies of this Book of Evidence and took it to Switzerland with us and delivered it personally to the members of the IOC. And who's got the last letter in here? It's also a lawsuit from the great group Designs for Change. Now, we went to Switzerland, we went to Copenhagen in October of 2009 to give them the final stuff. And guess whose letter we took to the IOC in October? Your letter.
Oh, yeah.
When you said one last time.
Yeah. Don't give us the games.
You said, this is like, I know we bothered you so many times, but listen, here's one last column from Ben Jaworski in Chicago. We deliver that personally through our Copenhagen police, the Danish army, the Secret Service, and Mayor Daley's personal security guards that he brought with him to Copenhagen. We penetrated all that to deliver the materials on the day of their vote.
And Chicago did not get the Olympics, so I guess I wrote a persuasive letter.
I think you
Tom?
did, and we delivered it for you.
I appreciate that.
Well, but the whole point of it was, Ben, is because of that meeting that we had that you joined us at 2008. It was in my mind about TIFs, and we used it to derail the Olympic bid in this way. In the spring of 2008, we got a hold of all the TIF reports of about 165, and we opened them all up and looked at the balance sheet and discovered $1.7 billion sitting in TIF accounts. So we ran around the city for the rest of the year saying, Chicago isn't broke. We don't need the games to prosper. Let's talk about that $1.7 billion right now. Let's figure out how to use that money to make the city great. Let's not throw a party, 7 years from now. And they hated us. That was the origin of the TIF Illumination Project, which has been rolling all these 6 years.
And so what you do with the TIF Illumination Project, among other things, and let's talk about this up front, is you do this tally of the annual reports.
Yeah.
This is really important, everybody, because every year a portion of your property tax is siphoned off to various TIF bank accounts that are largely controlled by the mayor with some key aldermen. But it's largely the mayor's slush fund, and the mayor is free to dip into it for whatever he or she wants. That's why it's so important to the mayor. The issue has been, since Tom started talking about it at great length, how much money is sitting in these TIF bank accounts that's unobligated, that is not directly earmarked for any specific project, which is free for the mayor to use however he or she wants.
Which is called a slush fund.
Which is called a slush fund, all right? Although in the column I write tomorrow, I see the mayonnaise, I allude to the mayonnaise jar because one common theme, Tom Tresser, that every mayor has repeated from Daley to Rahm to Lori Lightfoot is that despite what Tom Tresser says, there's no money in the TIF slush fund.
Well, we're here to say it ain't so.
And so just to get the mayonnaise joke, in the last budget, in the lead up to Mayor Lori Lightfoot's budget address last week, one of her, an unnamed city hall aide that would not reveal him or herself, told the Sun-Times that they've scraped the mayonnaise jar clean.
Yes, we brought it here. We brought it here to demonstrate.
So no matter what you say, Tom, they always say, sorry, Tresser, there's no money. And then all of a sudden when they need some money, where'd it come from?
They find some more mayonnaise, man.
Yeah.
So, yes, so let's just show the folks at home our sophisticated data gathering tool called the spreadsheet.
That's unbelievable. That's unbelievable.
This is here. This is here funded courtesy of nobody. We've been turned down 30 times by foundations, but nevertheless, we're able to use our vast data resources to go through the TIF reports every year. This is from 2018.
Okay.
So there's 145 active TIFs. So that's how many, that's how many rows we have. And all we do is we add up the numbers at the bottom of the sheet. And lo and behold, at the end of 2018, there was $1.5 billion sitting in the TIF accounts. Now, that is the city's data, okay? So let them dispute this and say, yeah, I'm hallucinating or we're wrong in some way. So it's simply their information.
Well, what they haven't done, and this goes back to Daley, this is a common theme, is that they've not in any way revealed their own. Like, you've gone through, okay, just people know this. This is like TIF geekdom. But the city is required by state law to provide an audit every year of every single TIF district. And so these are annual reports, and they put them online. They're PDF files.
And that's what we use.
Yeah, that's what you use. And so they're required by state law to do that. It's a report that it's officially delivered to the state controller. Anyway, so what Tom does is goes through 145 different annual reports.
Correct.
One report for. So you think the city would just say, you know what we're going to do? It's all on our computers. We're going to come up with one total. But no, they never do. They could do this. A computer, they have it all on their computers.
Well, not only that, Ben, they refuse to do it by wards because that's how people live politically. So they'll say, well, the Kinsey TIF district is this or that. And people go, I don't know what that is. I know Kinsey Street, but there's no alderman for Kinsey TIF. There's no director. So they resist and have resisted to make the information available by ward, which is what we do. So we scrape it and pull it apart and pull it back together again, and has been doing so since 2013. We did an open meeting, which you were at. Again, you're all over this project. A public meeting at the Chopin Theater.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it was February 2013, the night of the State of the Union address.
What year was it?
2013. And it was packed. The Chopin Theater, my friends, was SRO, like at a hockey game. People were leaning in. They were shouting, no TIFs, no TIFs. Why? Because Mayor Emanuel had just closed 50 schools. Mm-hmm. So people were really pregnant and angry and present about their property taxes, right? Mm-hmm. So you were there, Professor Richard Dye from the University of Illinois, who's been studying this for dogs' ages, and the great Valerie Leonard from
Valerie Leonard
London.
was there, yeah.
So that was our little get-together, and we unveiled the TIF Illumination project that night, and we revealed the TIFs of the 27th Award, which is where we were. And we said to the assembled folk, if this information is useful to you, how TIFs work and what they're doing to your ward, give us a call. And, we have no staff, we have nothing, but we'll try to do a good job for you. That was 76 meetings ago.
Yeah.
We did. The 77th meeting was just 2 weeks ago in Wicker Park. It hasn't stopped, and we have no budget. We have nothing. But still, folk out there, they want to know.
Yeah. Well, okay, and going back to the point I was making, so the mayor, instead of going through the computers and presenting a number for that they claim is in the reserves, just always says, Tom's wrong. Tom's wrong. That's what Tom's wrong. So we don't know. You would think that the first step one of a transparent, efficiently run city would be to tell people what property taxes they have in reserves so they don't have to raise your property tax. You can look at it from one of two ways, Tom. I sometimes, when I pay a top property tax bill, I put on my MAGA hat, and now suddenly I'm really upset that I'm paying more money in property taxes when I know this money's in reserve.
Yeah.
But then when I think about how our schools have 43 kids or 45 kids in a classroom, I put on my FDR hat.
Yeah.
And I'm upset that the money is being held in reserve instead of being used for something that I really feel is important. So you can look at it either way.
Well, I believe in government. I mean, I'm an FDR kind of guy, except we got to have better governors. And I've been fighting the machine here since 1991, but I'm a believer in government because government made us problems. I mean, we have racism and structural redlining and all these things that have plagued our city over the years. So we can use government for evil and for good, but we need better governors. And I've been fighting the machine for most of my adult life. And these TIFs here, we call them racist, and we say it's time to abolish them. And we ask people to go to endtifsnow.org. There's a petition and all our arguments lining up why these TIFs cannot be saved, they can't be tweaked or adjudicated, they got to go. And these 2 TIFs for Lincoln Yards and Project 78 are an act of economic warfare on Black Chicago. They're egregious beyond understanding. They got to go.
All right. Well, I'm lately, I'm rethinking everything. I'll throw this out at you. And I've sort of come to the conclusion that TIFs are necessary evil, and I will explain myself and get your response. So here's the deal. At their most basic fundamental level, TIF is a surcharge that the city slaps on the property tax that everybody pays, and the money goes into bank accounts, as we just said, largely controlled by the mayor. People don't seem too particularly upset about it, despite the fact, Tom, that I've been on this crusade since the 1990s, since the Clinton years. All right? People don't seem too worried about it. You know why? Because they don't realize they're paying it. So I've come to the conclusion is if the only way we can fund the things that we think are important with government is to slap a surcharge on the property tax that people don't realize that they're paying, if people will go along with it because they don't realize they're paying it, then who am I to complain? Who am I to notify people that they're paying more in their property tax to fund the things that they say they want for government? You know what? I'm raising the white flag.
Oh, no, ladies and gentlemen, this is a horrible day for Chicago.
But I don't want the money wasted on things that I don't think are frivolous and unnecessary, like, for instance, underwriting a upscale development in an already gentrifying neighborhood.
Owned by a billionaire.
Yeah, so I think that the money should be then taken out every year. And what do they call it? The surplus. They've created a whole word. We surplus a TIF. I'd turn that into a new word.
Yeah.
So I'm saying, what's your thoughts about that, Tom? Just let's keep the secret tax going. Let's keep slapping the surcharge on the property taxpayers. As long as the people in Chicago are so clueless, to quote that movie that Dennis loved in the 90s, and that they're willing to pay extra in their property taxes, who am I to complain? Who are you, Tom Tresser, to complain? And then we could spend the money on schools and police and firefighters. Go ahead.
Well, I feel your frustration, but I'll see you and raise you. We need to be fighting the wars. We need to be fighting the over-militarization of our country. Our mayor should be in conclusion with the mayors of Los Angeles, New York, and other older cities to fight the militarization of the country, because Chicago and Illinois ship so much of its federal taxes to Washington, which then gets repurposed for the military. So first, I'll put that on the table if we're thinking big pictures. If we could just keep a half of the federal taxes Chicagoans send to Washington every year for the military, we end the conversation. We could do whatever we want. We could rebuild the schools. We could cut class size in half. We could have gardens on every treetop. We could do. The sky would be the limit, and it's just our money, so let us use it. So in the spirit of what you're saying, no, end TIFs by all means, but replace it with a breathtaking plan for the future of the city of Chicago, which we're still waiting for from this mayor. If we can give so much money to billionaire Keating Crown at Lincoln Yards and the developers, structured development down on the river in Roosevelt, can we not come up with something equally breathtaking that will serve all our Chicagoans? And I don't know what that is, but let's have the conversation. Some people say cut class size in half. Some people say let's go solar and put solar panels on all buildings and let the city buy those panels, and you'd be trained and something like that. Sort of like, again, like the New Deal. The city becomes the employer of first resort. That's where we need to be. Stop messing around in public money for a target, for low wage jobs and non-union jobs. Let's get out of that space. Let's think big. Then I'm with you.
All right. I agree with you on the thinking big part. In fact, one thing I miss from the 80s, one of the few things I miss from the 80s, Harold Washington, former mayor of the city of Chicago, was always talking about our urban agenda. And our mayors since then have dropped that rhetoric, talk about how let's say Chicago has things in common with LA or New York or any other city in the country, and that we should have a combined urban agenda. We should petitioning the federal government to spend more money on cities to help us with our transit and our education, et cetera, and so forth. And so, yes, you're absolutely correct. That rhetoric is lost. In fact, cities are now competing against each other, fighting to woo the Amazons of the world.
Wrong way to go.
So I agree with you on that one. But let's just deal with this one issue that we're confronted with right now. And that is that we're in day 9 of a teacher strike.
Yeah.
And the teachers union is demanding that the teachers, that the city allocate more money, more tax dollars, because it's not coming from the feds.
No.
It's not coming from the state at the moment. So more locally raised money to lower class size and to hire more nurses, counselors, et cetera, and so forth, and perhaps give teachers more prep time. So it's all these things are on the table, and Mayor Lori Lightfoot has said when she totals it up, there's $100 million difference between what the teachers want and what she wants to give them.
Mayor Lightfoot, go back to the mayonnaise jar.
I was going to ask.
It's not empty. So look, here we go.
Oh my God.
Here we go. So
illustration.
She took out 1/3.
Oh my gosh.
All right. Let the record show.
mayo.
Let the record show
It's mayonnaise,
that
ladies
we've
and
emptied
gentlemen.
out 1/3 of the mayonnaise jar. That's $300 million.
Okay.
But look, the mayonnaise jar is still filled with $1.2 billion of mayonnaise.
Okay.
So here we go. Look at that. Look at all that mayonnaise in there.
Oh my
God.
Don't get it on the table. There it goes.
Tom
Anyway.
Tresser brought mayonnaise.
I think the people at home,
Want a
That's a great
sandwich.
they get the point. The mayonnaise jar is full of TIF money. So if it's only $100 million, Mayor Lightfoot, go back to the jar.
Yeah.
Let's get this strike over with, okay? And by the way, while you're at it, kill that Lincoln Yards.
Wait, before you say kill the, she killed the lawsuit that would have killed Lincoln
Yeah,
Yards.
no. Let's rethink that.
All right, but let me just say this. This is the other little point that I always am amused by. Whenever the mayor, and it doesn't, whichever mayor, because they're interchangeable on this point, Rahm, Lori, does a surplus of TIF funds when they dip into the mayonnaise jar and throw a little mayonnaise at various entities
That's right.
that need the money at that moment.
Yeah.
They always say the same thing. They always go, this is a one-time deal.
Yeah.
Okay? We can't rely on any more mayonnaise coming in the mayonnaise jar. So all you little peasants out there in the city of Chicago, this is just a one-time
right.
deal. Forgetting to remind us that every year that TIF surplus, that surcharge on your property tax exists. So guess what, folks? Next year, you're going to be pouring more of your mayonnaise into that jar.
That jar keeps getting filled up every year.
It's like, but every year, Tom, when they do the surplus, what do they say? This is just a one-shot
special
deal.
thing, yeah.
Special thing.
Emmanuel did that a few years ago. I think it was about $85 million. The last time that the teachers came to the table, right? I think that was about 4 or 5 years ago.
Isn't that funny? They only dip into the mayonnaise jars when the teachers go on strike.
Right. Imagine if some of the other unions had their balls. Well, look, CTU, come with us and help us abolish these TIFs. If you had helped us abolish TIFs, if they had been working with me, this would have been a done deal by now. This money the mayonnaise jar would have been emptied. It would have been a different civic conversation. So I asked my friends at Jesse Sharkey, if you're listening to this, let's work together. Your rank and file know me. They've come to my meetings. They understand what we're speaking about here, this injustice about TIFs. So let's get on the same page, brother. Let's kill these TIFs together, and you won't have your strike will be over in like 5 minutes.
All right. I'm not certain. In fact, I am positive I'm not aboard the kill the TIFs bandwagon, because the new Ben Joravsky is let's exploit the TIFs since they're not going anywhere. But I am with you.
You're killing me, man.
Yeah, I'm with you 100% on transparency. So at the very least, we'll cut a deal, Tom. This is Chicago. We'll cut a deal. You and I agree that the mayor should be completely and totally and utterly transparent about how much mayonnaise is in the mayonnaise jar. Are you in agreement
I
with
agree,
that?
but listen, let me just say, when I hear transparency in the city of Chicago, because this is the big watchword, to me, that's the image of a gas station robbery where you watch the security footage a month later. It's grainy. You see a guy with his hands up. There's a gun. A crime has been committed. It's over. It's gone. The criminal is gone. But you've got the videotape. That's what transparency means to me in the city of Chicago.
All right. And now let's just also point out, just so people know, that the other thing that the TIF Illumination Project does, as in addition to measuring how much mayonnaise in the mayonnaise jar, is you do hearings or meetings in neighborhoods throughout the city of Chicago, and you break down what their TIF districts have spent the money on, and what kind of things you discovered, all kinds of things.
Well, like I say, we've been doing this 77 times. You can hit us at civiclab.us, and you'll see a way to contact us, or tom@civiclab.us if you feel like emailing me. We'll come and visit you, but basically we do a civic house call. So we'll tell you, first of all, what TIFs are in sort of a strangely entertaining way that is compelling and clear. So you leave the meeting with a basic 101. These are how TIFs work. These are how many there are in the city, you know, how big a deal it is. How big a deal it is in the state of Illinois, because there's about 1,200 TIFs across the whole state, about 420 cities. So we're not alone. Then we tell you, okay, here we are in the 13th ward, the 19th ward, wherever we are. Here's how many TIFs there are here. Here's how much money they've taken from you. Here's who's getting paid. Come on, this is Chicago. We want to know who got paid. And then we say, hey, could there be any conflict of interest? Heaven forfend. Could there be a connection between people who received TIF money and your alderperson? And guess what? Every time there is. We were in the ward, what's her name? Carrie Austin's ward. I think that was the 34th ward. Mm-hmm. Unbeknownst to me, her chief of staff was in the back of the room. And when I got to the point of revealing the conflicts of interest, the two big TIFs that she funded there gave her about $6,000 in campaign contributions, I heard a voice from the back of the room, she used that money for turkeys. I said, excuse me? And all of a sudden, it's her chief of staff, a guy who's been in the news for his double dipping between the state and the city. And he said, yeah, she used that money for turkeys. And I go, are you kidding me?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to laugh, but go ahead.
So
what a city.
So this chief of staff guy did try to very change the subject and, you know, try to get us off the topic. But basically he said, yes, the alderman took the $6,000 and spent it on turkeys for her citizens.
Well,
but we find those stories over and over
again. And it is kind of a funny thing because many times Tom will bring his show on the road to some ward, and the alderman or an aldermanic aide will be outraged and get up and start accusing you of getting something wrong. I think I was at a meeting with you once in West Riders Park, where Bernie Stone, the former alderman, maybe rest in peace. Yeah, he got it. You don't know what you're talking about.
Save some of that mayonnaise for me.
That was actually the only time. Listen, I don't run those meetings. They're always put together by the citizens of the neighborhood, and they often do invite the alderman. They never come. No sitting alderman has ever been at one of those meetings.
Well, time out. Bernie was retired by then.
Yes, he's retired.
No, but he's since passed on. But at that, he was not the sitting alderman. No. He had lost his election.
That's right.
And he came.
Because he was defending his past actions.
Well, he was also interested in the issue, and he was Bernie Stone, and I'm going to defend Bernie Stone.
So, I like Bernie. But no sitting alderman has ever hosted one of these meetings, nor been in the audience just sort of except 2 times where they came late because they heard that the meeting was packed and was dynamic, and 2 aldermen came and then got lambasted by the attendees.
All right, that's Tom Tresser. He's with
Tom. If real quick too, if you could plug, so we got people on the live stream chat wondering about the TIF website. If you could just plug everything one more time.
One more time.
Sure. Go to endtifsnow.org, and that's the campaign to eliminate TIFs. If you just want the background, and we got videos and, oh my goodness, all sorts of reports, it's tifreports.com. If you want to get a hold of me, Tom Tresser, bring me to your community. We do civic house calls. Hook me up at tom@civiclab.us.
And that's Tresser, Tresser.
You got it, brother.
All right, Tom Tresser has been fighting a good fight for a long time. Thank you so much. And speaking of unions that got guts, Tom, I'll tell you, Nicole Cantello she's the president of Local 704, American Federation of Government Employees. She doesn't play around. She's going to hear, we're going to be talking about Donald Trump's bizarre attitude toward federal employees and to the EPA and to the environment. So we're going to bring Nicole on after this break. Take care, everybody.
Night, and I want to thank all the people who were involved and at the table till well past 2 a.m. We came so close, nearly to a tentative agreement on the biggest issues at stake. The two that CTU defined for us as their core issues, class size and staffing. These are the issues that CTU has told us from day one are the most critical to getting a deal done. For months, we've heard the union say they needed additional support staff and class size relief on top of the generous compensation package on the table that will pay the average teacher nearly $100,000 a year. And so we made significant compromises to resolve these issues. $70 million in additional staffing, including a nurse and a social worker in every school, in writing. $25 million in class size relief, in writing. Commitments to direct additional resources toward our high-needs schools. We put it all in writing because on these matters, we fundamentally agree with the union. Our students need and deserve fully staffed, fully resourced schools, and our teachers can do their best work with manageable class sizes. All told, this is a $500 million offer, and yet we still do not have a deal. The CTU's bargaining team continues to move the goalpost and bring in more issues that do not belong in any collective bargaining contract. They have now informed us that they want us to bargain over several other matters that are legislative in matters in nature, not contract issues. For example, they're demanding that I support a specific bill about an elected school board, a bill that I fundamentally think is flawed and rejected. Look, I make clear many times that I support an elected representative school board, but that is a citywide conversation that must be had. It is a policy that must be changed through the legislative process in Springfield and with many stakeholders at the table, not just the CTU leadership. They also want to negotiate over a change to the state labor law that governs what issues the union can strike over. Again, this is a legislative issue, not a contract issue. Are we really keeping our kids out of class unless I agree to support the CTU's full political agenda wholesale? If the CTU wants a deal, there's a deal to be had right now on the table. It's an excellent offer that will bring unprecedented equity-focused investments to our school system.
All right, today's Ben Joravsky Show, not only brought to you by mayonnaise, also, I thought Mayor Pete was in here, also brought to you by Green Element Resale. That's right, they're located at 6241 North Broadway in Chicago. And people, it's the best thrift shop I've ever been to. Honestly, they're open from Monday through Saturday, 11 a.m. until 7 p.m. Sundays, 12 until 7 p.m. No, they don't have mayonnaise. I think that's the last thing you want to buy from a thrift shop is mayonnaise. But hey, they may have a mayonnaise jar, an empty jar that you can buy. GreenElementResale.com is their website. I'm looking at GreenElementResale.com right now, and I'll tell you some of the things. I've got pictures here. They got pictures posted on GreenElementResale.com. Oh, look at that. It's a beanie. It's cold outside. Who needs a beanie? Who doesn't need a beanie? Everybody needs a beanie. So that's there at greenelementresale.com. Go check it out. It's Green Element Resale. They're located right between the Granville and Loyola Red Line stops. It's right there between Granville and Devon. So go check it out. Green Element. Oh, that's a suitcase. Oh, that's a nice suitcase, too. Green Element Resale, home of suitcases. So go check out Green Element Resale, 6241 North Broadway. And yeah, I think we're done talking about them. Welcome back to the Ben Joravsky Show, live from the Chicago Sun-Times.
Nicole Cantello has joined us from the Federation of Government Employees, one of my favorite unions, Local 704 here. And you talk about a union with guts. Nicole's union has got some serious guts from the get-go. Donald John Trump was elected in 2016. I think it was January of 2017. Maybe it was February. I may get the months off, Nicole. The workers, the employees, the scientists, the lawyers from the EPA were out in the street protesting his cuts and his regulatory cuts that were leaving us vulnerable to all kinds of contaminants and pollutants, et cetera, and so forth. And here we are 3 years later, and you're still out in the streets fighting Donald Trump. So thank you for doing that, and welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I just wanted to say first, before we started, that we express solidarity with the CTU. who are out there now for 8 days. As you know, we were out of work in a lockout during the shutdown, so we know how it is to be out of work and not being deprived of our livelihood, and we just want to express solidarity with CTU.
All right, man. Man, wow, locked out. Yeah, they shut down the government. That's like, I remember you coming on the show, or maybe it was Felicia Chase. I can't remember which, but it just seems like ancient history. When was that? I've lost track of time.
It was December and January of this year.
Yeah. My God, that's like
another body blow that we took. And I just want to say our first day in the streets against the Trump administration was February 6, 2017. We've been out in the streets since that day. And on that day, February 6, 2017, we were protesting against Pruitt being nominated for head of the EPA, and we got him out of there.
All right, now let's sort of subdivide things here, and so we can deal with it. There's two essential issues at stake here, Nicole, as I see it, and maybe you could add to the number of issues that we should address. The first has to do with Donald Trump's administration's attitude toward collective bargaining rights and federal employees who are in unions. That hostility, which is beyond the EPA, it's dealing with people who work for the Social Security Administration, people who work for the Veterans Administration, who work at any federal employees. There's that issue. And then there's the issue of his particular hostility to regulations and rules that protect the environment from pollution. So you're in the middle of a two-prong attack by Donald Trump. Am I accurate in what I just said?
You got it. We got the double whammy. That's what I referred to it as, the double whammy. So the second one, the first one that you referred to, the one that attacks federal labor rights, that one came on later. So we got the first one, which was the attack on the environment, which seems to be Trump's real desire here. He has rolled back 81 environmental rules since he started, or he has tried to attack 81 environmental rules since he started. But just putting that one aside right now, and the later attack is the one on all federal workers, in which he has tried to roll back labor rights for all federal workers. One of the things that, if you think about what's going on in this administration, I think one of the stories that is going to be told about this administration is the way federal workers stood up against this administration. Across the board, if you think about, the Ukrainian ambassador, if you think about those guys down in the National Weather Service who objected to the Sharpie being drawn, across the board, if you think about us here in Region 5 and how we're resisting and we're continuing to speak out, it's really federal workers who have nowhere to go, who are still staying in their jobs, who are the last line of defense, who are objecting to this administration. And there is just no doubt that that's why he is coming after our rights to protect ourselves against him by having those rights in our contracts. And he has at the EPA just taken away our collective bargaining agreement and imposed something what we call the UMAD, which is we call it the UMAD because it's a unilateral management anti-employee directive that was imposed upon us that took away our labor rights. And that document is still in effect at EPA, although we just won a victory at the Federal Labor Relations Authority just a few days ago, in which the Federal Labor Relations Authority here in Chicago found that EPA did bargain in bad faith in imposing that document. So we're very thrilled about that.
Talk about a UMAD. It's an acronym, and it's probably confusing people out there. Let's break it down. What does it stand for again? Unilateral?
We call it the UMAD because it makes us, obviously mad.
Mad.
It's a unilateral management anti-employee directive. So what the Trump administration was just took away the contract that we had collectively bargained that gave all of us rights, like the ability to file a grievance if someone, if, for instance, management disciplined us or downgraded our performance or took away a flex day away from us. So it allowed us to file a grievance. It took away rights like that. And so when the UMAD was imposed upon us, we objected to that, and we filed a objection in the Federal Labor Relations Authority, and we said, this isn't right. They can't just take away our contract that we've collectively bargained and take away all of our rights and just impose upon us a contract.
Yeah. I just pause here. When I wrote about this, I remember talking to you, or maybe it was Felicia, I can't remember who, and saying, I just can't imagine Donald Trump in a contractual negotiation with, let's say, a subcontractor, having the subcontractor just impose a new contract on him, raising the rates that he would have to pay, or any private entity that is dealing with another entity in a contractual agreement. Just one side does not have the right to impose its terms on the other side. And yet Donald Trump felt he had the right to tell your union, this is the way it's going to be. I'm throwing away your old agreement.
Yeah, I mean, this is the great negotiator. He didn't feel like he could get this in negotiations. He had to just impose it upon us, no negotiations. But this is what he did. And so he is not, but we objected. We went to the Chicago Federal Labor Relations Regional Office, and the career staff there found that there was a violation of the Federal Labor Relations statute, and that the EPA management had bargained in bad faith.
So now what's the net effect of that ruling?
Well, unfortunately, there isn't much of an effect because which is very Trumpian, because there is no general counsel at the Federal Labor Relations Authority. You know that he is keeping many of his posts vacant. So in order to move that particular complaint forward and to give it effect, the next thing would have to happen is that complaint would have to be recommended up to the general counsel, and the general counsel would move it forward. Well, there is no general counsel because Trump has appointed someone, but it hasn't been moved forward in the Republican Senate. And so there's no one to move that complaint forward. But at least we have this finding that they violated the law.
So in other words, let's just follow. It's like out of a novel by Kafka.
No, it is.
Yeah. So
I
in
mean,
other
it really
words, a finding was made sustaining your argument, agreement with your argument that they violated the collective bargaining agreement, that they did not act in concert with the law. And so generally what would happen, that finding would go to the general counsel of this federal entity, who would impose upon the EPA the obligation to begin collective bargaining with the union again and to respect the contract that they have. But because there's a vacancy in the general counsel's office, there's no one to impose the finding. So it's as though a tree fell in the forest and no one was around, it didn't make a noise.
Yes, but no, in that we have the finding and we can go out and say, look, these career staffers who have no dog in this hunt found that there was a violation. We're right. They violated the law, and this is wrong. And we can, we have that vindication. We can tell our members that. We can tell the press and everybody else the Trump administration wronged us. And if there is a general counsel that's eventually appointed, we can force the Trump administration at least to confront the issue of this wrong that has occurred to us. Also, the FLRA regional office presented settlement terms to EPA management and said, you can go back to the bargaining table. And the EPA management rejected those terms. So we also have that to present to our members. Look, EPA management rejected collective bargaining to for you or with you when presented by the FLRA after being found in violation of collective bargaining, which is powerful to our members. So these are, this is a very positive development for us, and we're very pleased with it.
All right. And so, of course, presuming I'm not certain Donald Trump will fill that vacancy at general counsel anytime soon. He's too busy giving speeches in the city of Chicago, taking issue with our police chief. But presumably a new president, if a new president is elected by the voters of this country, will fill that vacancy. So is your sense of it that this sort of labor law battle will continue until the next election?
I mean, we hope if there is a new if there's a new president installed and there's a new election, that the UMAD will be withdrawn, and because it was unilaterally imposed, so a new president could unilaterally withdraw it.
Now, one of the things they said you could not grieve when they took away your union rights or your collective bargaining rights. They said you couldn't grieve a punishment that you thought was unwarranted, or it was a way to penalize somebody for doing labor work or union work, et cetera, and so forth. You couldn't grieve that, take that to a hearing officer. Have there been incidences where they've now punished some of the employees for rules and rights that are under the collective bargaining agreement?
Yes, they have. And I just want to clarify that, because there's certain employees that you can't, that cannot grieve a disciplinary action against them, and then there's certain ones that can't.
Okay.
So there still is an avenue under the UMAD to have a grievance filed for a disciplinary action, and then there's certain ones that do not have the right. And so I just want to say that I am one of those employees that if a disciplinary action was brought against me, I would not be able to grieve that disciplinary action. So I am one of those employees that would fall under the title of or the group that would not be able to grieve. So, and then there's some that would be able. And right now, the ones that they have disciplined are the ones that would be able to grieve. So we have not had the situation where that are in the group that were disciplined.
So that would really be a bold act of just, I don't want to say war because that's such a strong term, but a strike against the union. If they went after someone like you that they claimed was unprotected, even though the union contract would protect you, and that would go to court, right? That would spill over. That'd be a legal fight.
Yeah, there is one situation where we're having this, where people were able to grieve before, where they're not, which is right now folks are getting their performance reviews, and before under the contract you were able to grieve a performance review, a downgrade in performance. And it's the end of the fiscal year. Our fiscal year ended September 30th, and so it's this new fiscal year 2020. And folks are getting their performance reviews, and they are not, if they get a low performance review, they are not able to grieve that. And that's something, that you could see could be, someone could get a low performance review, not for a reason that they had a bad performance, but because someone didn't like them or they were whistleblower or something like that. And that's something that they're unable to grieve under the new contract. And that is something that is across the board. And that is something that is folks feel that they want to grieve right now and are showing up at my door, and we are not able to grieve that under the current contract.
What about
the current UMAD? Excuse me.
Yeah, UMAD, not contract. What about vacancies? And are they filling vacancies when they occur, or are they making you do more with less employees?
So we are at the lowest staffing level that we have ever been right now. And even though they are hiring a few people, they are not able to keep up with attrition. So we are losing so many folks every 2 weeks during pay period time. And even though they are hiring 1 or 2 folks every 2 weeks, they are just not able to keep up with the amount of folks that are retiring or leaving the agency. So we are at the lowest point right now that we have ever been.
All right, and let's talk about the practical implications of that. If they don't fill a vacancy, if you're losing staff, what are some of the responsibilities that the people these vacancies that they're not filling would cover? What are some of the responsibilities?
Well, I'll give you an example. So one of the things that we're responsible for here in Region 5 is we do enforcement in 6 states. So at headquarters, for instance, they do things like write rules and regulations, but out here we enforce the law against polluters. We do inspections of these polluters, these facilities like steel mills and petrochemical plants. And we are this year, in fiscal year 2019, we have the lowest amount of inspections that we have had in the last 10 years, which is, kind of an unprecedented thing. Usually we go up in inspections every year, you would expect, because the agency should be getting better at its job, not worse. We are so low at our inspections. I believe we are down 30% or more in inspections from the previous year. So we are
30%, did you say?
Yeah, not able to cover or do as many inspections and cover the facilities across our 6 states that we have been in the past or were last year or the year before.
So there could be contamination. There could be pollution that you're unaware of just because you don't have the manpower or woman power to do these basic inspections.
Oh, yeah, and this has been documented by Michael Hawthorne, that there's...
Michael Hawthorne, ace investigative reporter for the Chicago Tribune.
In the Trib, and that there are spills, going on in Northwest Indiana that have not been caught by either, the Indiana Department of Environmental Management or US EPA.
That would be Michael Hawthorne one more time, Chicago Tribune reporter. He's been doing a great job covering these things. So there's a practical impact, Nicole, to when Donald Trump doesn't fill vacancies, when Donald Trump is hostile to the union and it sort of deters people from doing their jobs. It's a very practical.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's actually a very, very important report that just came out that showed that air pollution in the United States, particulate air pollution, which is, fine particle particulate air pollution in the United States, just increased for the first time in a generation. And that's because we're not catching polluters anymore. It's one of the reasons.
And not only that, we have the front page of the New York Times filled with stories about fires in California from one end of the state to the other, Los Angeles to Northern California. It does seem as though while we're so distracted, Nicole, by so many different things, I mean, important things, impeachment inquiries going on in Washington, school strike here in the city of Chicago, it's like the world is falling apart. It's almost biblical what I'm seeing happening in the state of California. Got to believe there's some kind of connection to global warming and et cetera.
Yeah, no, this is a global warming issue, as you know, the PG&E issue, and whether or not they can keep the power on there, as well as have also while fires are raging. It's all connected to the global warming issue, and for as far as EPA staffing goes, it's absolutely crucial that we keep EPA staffing up, because if we do get a new administration in, it's EPA staff that will have to control the greenhouse gases. That the new administration will have to the new greenhouse. It will be the EPA staff that will control the greenhouse gases that will be central to any plan to control global warming that the new administration will have. So you can't have an EPA staff that's going to be crippled and it's going to be at its lowest number ever. EPA staff needs to hit the ground running under the new administration, not be at its lowest point ever from a staffing standpoint. We need to be talking about how we're going to ramp EPA staff up. What's happening now is EPA staff is being, shackled. I mean, that's crazy when you have climate change running rampant. I mean, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, we should be going in the other direction. We should be more vigilant, and instead we're being less vigilant. And then the front page of the paper again, this is not directly related to anything you do here at the EPA office in Chicago, but GM, Fiat, Chrysler, and Toyota side with Trump on emissions. This has to do with the Trump administration's attitude to the state of California coming up with its own agreement with automakers on how much emissions should be tolerated. Trump says, no, it's too high. The standards are too high. We want lower standards. We want more pollution, Nicole, and some of the car manufacturers. My sense of it is they're looking ahead. Maybe Trump's going to win. They want to be on his side. It does look as though, I mean, this is the most obvious point I'm making, but our government, is retreating on the wider cause of protecting the environment.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's no doubt. Like I said, they've rolled back 81, or they attempted to roll back 81 environmental rules. I mean, that is unprecedented. It's almost as if this was his primary agenda that he came into this administration with. It is the thing he's been most successful in doing across the board. Someone looked at this and they said, well, what is it actually that he has actually been most focused on and most successful at? And this is really the thing that he has accomplished and done, had the most energy and focus on in this area. And it's amazing what he's been able to get accomplished. We need to turn it around. I mean, we need to make, obviously there are folks out there, including myself, who are focused on trying to figure out how we're going to do that, come a new administration, how am I going to get the staff here in Region 5 built back up immediately upon if there is a new administration, and how are we going to then start addressing all these very, very, very important problems?
All right, Nicole, if folks want to get in touch with you, if they want to see what the union's up against, do you have a website, anything you could give them, any way of they can reach the people at your union?
Yeah, we're on Twitter at 704AFGE, and then my Gmail is 704AFGE@gmail.com.
All right, very good. And I have to say, I will be talking to a meeting of your union tomorrow. You're having.
I'm so excited you're coming.
Yes, I'm excited to be there as
Did
well.
you take notes from our guest we had at 2:00? Bring mayonnaise.
Yeah, I'm gonna bring mayonnaise. Those
That was awesome.
EPA workers love mayonnaise. No, I'm
We're going to have a lot for you to eat, Ben. So
Okay, I
don't need to bring your own food.
I don't have to bring any mayonnaise. So anyway, I'll be. That meeting will be around noon, and then from that meeting, I'm going to dash over here. So the show we'll get. I think the show will start maybe a little later tomorrow.
All right.
But we'll work it out. It'll all be good.
So our show may start a little later tomorrow, and we do have an update before we get out of here as well. Well, I think we saw this one coming here. This was at about 2:24 this afternoon. 9 CTU protesters were arrested at Sterling Bay. It says here 9 members of the Chicago Teachers Union demonstrating inside Sterling Bay headquarters have been arrested, a Chicago police spokeswoman confirmed to the Chicago Sun-Times. Teachers had gathered at the entrance to the building to deliver a letter. That's according to CTU leader Chris Behrend. He says here, we want Sterling Bay to renegotiate with the mayor. He said of TIF funding of the Lincoln Yards development, we have a team inside with the letter asking for a meeting with the CEO. It says here we have members in front who've locked arms who are willing to take an arrest to hold Sterling Bay accountable for their greed at the expense of our students. The development company behind the Lincoln Yards project issued a statement via Twitter once this happened, asserting that the police presence was not at their request. Here's the tweet from Sterling Bay. At the request of Fulton West's new management and ownership, not Sterling Bay, it's not us, guys. CTU protesters have been placed under arrest. I have a little bit of audio here. It may be inaudible. Haven't heard it, but let's check it out and see what we got. Yeah, it's one of those things with music in the background. All right, but you get the point.
All right, that was cool music. Sterling Bay is a developer that is overseeing the massive Lincoln Yards development, which has been underwritten by $1.3 billion. That's B with a boy of your property tax dollars. That was approved by the city council in a vote in the last meeting under Mayoral. And Mayor Lori Lightfoot said at the time that there was nothing she could do to stop it, even though she basically was opposed to the deal. She and her staffers had reviewed it and had gotten some accommodations regarding minority hiring, but there was nothing they could do to stop it, so they're going to let it go. Subsequently, just so everybody knows, a lawsuit was filed by the Grassroots Collaborative challenging the handout to Sterling Bay on the grounds that it was unconstitutional or unlawful or racially biased, etc. And then Mayor Lori Lightfoot sent in city lawyers to battle that lawsuit and convinced a judge to throw it out. So if she was against the Sterling Bay handout of $1.3 billion, she has a funny way of showing it with city lawyers who are paid for by the way, with your...
Yes, that's billion with a B.
Thank you.
I don't know much about optics, but you had the Chance the Rapper on Saturday Night Live with the CTU shirt, also cast members with the CTU shirt on as well. And then we got CTU members getting arrested. That doesn't look good.
No, listen, they're at $38 million according to this, the union. Is it the difference? The mayor says it's $100 million, so I split the distance. Nicole, you've been in negotiations. You know, people say all kinds of different things. Sometimes they think they're saying the truth, but they maybe don't understand. Who knows? So let's just split the difference. $69 million, as Tommy Tresser pointed out. You got enough of that lying around the mayonnaise jar, they can cut a deal.
This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine.
All right, okay. Thank you, Mayor Lightfoot. So anyway, I want to thank Nicole Cantello from the EPA Workers Union. I'll be talking to them tomorrow, having lunch with them, breaking bread with them. I also want to thank Tom Tresser from the TIF Illumination Project. And Maya Dukmasova was in here earlier in the day talking... we're talking all kinds of things, tips, politics, etc., and so forth. And, of course, the man, the myth, the legend behind the board, the pride and joy of Alton, Illinois, the man they call Dr. D. Give yourself a raise.
And White Lightning. Don't forget that.
Well, yeah, and White Lightning. Give yourself a raise. Take it out of petty cash. See you tomorrow, everybody.
My name's Dennis. All right, and remember, you can download previous Ben Joravsky shows and Benny J bonus interviews at both Chicago Sun-Times and Chicago Reader websites, chicago.suntimes.com, chicagoreader.com, and wherever else you download your favorite podcasters. Downloaders, we do live stream this program, and hey, way to go us. No technical difficulties today on the live stream. We're going to keep it going. 2 days in a row, we'll see. But you can check out the live stream at both Chicago Sun-Times and Chicago Reader websites. We live stream on Facebook at Benny J Show and the Chicago Sun-Times YouTube channel. See you tomorrow.